and roll in and action.
Thank you so much.
Okay, one more time. Last round.
We simply put a message there with an arrow saying, Chal Hut. Hotels, unfortunately, still felt like a chore.
Alright guys, so today on our podcast, we're interviewing Mr. Manish Tandon. He started right at the floor, on the ground at the Taj Hotels as a restaurant manager at the Taj. Went on from there to scale brands like KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell for the Yum Brands business. Today we go behind the scenes, into the grind, the lessons and the brutal truths about what it actually takes to scale in food, retail and hospitality. Let's dive right in. All right, Mr. MT, as the world likes to call you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Of course, you are my father. I know a lot about your background, but I think let's do this for the people watching. Let's hear about your experiences growing through the ranks in the
It's a pretty long journey, right? So I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can take up your entire
38 years.
podcast with just what the background is. But in a nutshell, I started with the Taj Group in the fine dining space. Was part of some really high-end launches at the Taj in Chennai. And from there, I transitioned in 1995 when KFC was launching in India and Pizza Hut to the Yum Brands as it is today. At that time, I joined a company called PepsiCo Foods. And we launched the first few restaurants, and then I had many years of transition within the Yum Brands. The most interesting part of that transition was I was seconded to a franchisee to set up their business as the CEO. Interestingly, that was at a very young age. I was barely 31 years old. Maybe in today's day and age, it doesn't sound that young, but at the time, it was very surprising for most people that I was already heading a business at that age. Wasn't much of a business, though. It was just a very tiny 2-restaurant business, which we had just about launched. And the objective was to grow that across the South and the West, which I did. So that journey lasted till about 2005. Then Hard Rock Cafe was launching in India. I got interested in that. Went and joined the team that brought in Hard Rock Cafe. We launched it. And then my ex-boss, a very fine gentleman called Sandeep Kohli, he called me back. He wanted me to head operations for Pizza Hut in India. I found that as a very exciting challenge compared to what I was doing at the time. So it became Pizza Hut operations. And with Pizza Hut operations came two things. One, during that period, we transitioned Pizza Hut to a slightly elevated version, the dine-in version. And we also launched PhD, which was the delivery
Which year
business.
was this?
PhD launched in 2008, the first restaurant.
And the fine dining part? Which year was that?
The fine dining was actually a transition, so there wasn't really a single date. Now, what we were trying to do, or what we did, was we transitioned all existing units to the new look and feel and to the new menu styling. Now, a lot of that, because it took some investment, and this was all a franchise-led business, it was very difficult to convince franchisees to invest more behind a business that already invested in heavily. And then we were attempting to transition the Pizza Hut delivery business into a PhD segment. Personally, I was not entirely supporting the PhD business. It was a directive, and I was given the opportunity to launch that business in India, and hence I launched it because I knew how to. But that doesn't mean that I really like the idea that we broke Pizza Hut up into two bits.
Would you say that's why when when I was a kid, I remember, and we used to call the number 3988 to place an order. I remember that.
Amazing, you remember that?
I remember that number every single day. Every week we used to order that chicken supreme and a bottle of Coke. But I remember Pizza Hut. I remembered it more for the experiences inside the restaurant, like the ball pits that were created for kids, the parties that used to happen, the dances that used to happen. I think that's what my core memory of Pizza Hut really is, which is, I think, faded today. I don't think it's so much the case today in the way I see it. But I mean, was that
So
part
I
of what you guys
think,
did?
the whole, yes, I mean, unfortunately, we were attempting to actually elevate it further, and then this was a global idea that kind of flew down to us, which was that we need to separate delivery and dine-in. Like I said, I didn't personally support it for the simple reason that I've been heading and running a franchise business, which meant I was also part of the capital raising and of managing the capital as well as the balance sheets. When you've already invested capital behind one large unit, what you'd like to do is to utilize every channel to ensure that you get revenue from every channel so that you benefit from it.
Sure.
And you better utilize your asset.
Sure.
Now, if somebody comes and tells me as a franchise partner, as an owner of a business, that, hey, I'm going to take away one channel from you, and that channel is 30% of your revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to make the other two channels more profitable because you should focus on them more. I can't see the logic in that. Because one of the biggest challenges any restaurant faces, even today, and you've seen how many restaurants in the 5 stars operate only for lunch and dinner, even on high streets. Why would they operate only for lunch and dinner? Is because what you're trying to do is to better utilize your asset. In a period where there is no traffic, say the early morning hours or the afternoon hours or the late afternoon hours, you would want to shut them. In Pizza Hut, we used to continue to remain open between 11 to 11 at night. Now, what that meant was that there was a period of absolute lull in the afternoons. Our objective always was to better utilize those dead periods. And now you take one channel away. Me, not happy. Irrespective, Pizza Hut went along their own strategy and the way they thought about it. Over a period, what you're saying is right. As a brand and as a product, pizzas have got more and more commoditized, and they're now, I mean, you're not really looking at a dining experience in a Pizza Hut. Also, the consumer has evolved. There are many other newer offerings, slicker. Yes, the new pizzerias, they may not be in all the cities, they may not be in the tier 2, tier 3s, but they are a whole phenomena, right? So you've got all these many options which are way better as pizza consuming options or as a meal option with pizza involved in it. So Pizza Hut per se, to remain relevant, perhaps needed to do something more dramatic. Anyway, but that's my opinion. I could have said that, hey, that dramatic something could have been something totally different.
Yeah, sure.
But
sure. So,
well,
I mean, you know what? I think your experience having operated beyond anything else, and that transition from fine dine to operating a QSR. And this is a conversation we've had before, and I remember when you guys had just started, you used to work with a guy called Raghuvesh Sarup, and your moats used to be really beyond the guerrilla marketing, and we come to the guerrilla marketing pieces in a minute. It used to be the operational excellence. It used to be the design of that kitchen. Could you tell me more about your experience with designing a kitchen? I remember you also telling me a story about a time where KFC was left shut and you walked in for a review. Tell me about that story. I think that's really a bit about what makes you such a good projects person, what makes you such a good operations person. I'd love to hear about that.
So, the transition from fine dine at Taj to a QSR such as KFC taught me right in the very beginning that I had to become in charge of the kitchen. I'm a very logical, sort of right-brained person. So for me, everything needs to work in blocks, and each block has to connect with the other block. That's how I think. KFC was, in that aspect, a dream, because everything had already been structured to operate in a way that each piece in the kitchen slotted into the other and ensured that you got a product to the customer in the freshest and quickest way possible. With the promise of 90-second delivery, it was absolutely critical that we had ready product available to sell at the time when the customer came. And a large part of that success came from the way the kitchen was designed and the process flows were designed. So I'm a quick learner, fortunately, so I picked that up as a very key aspect, and I realized within a year of launching KFC, perhaps surprising to me but not surprising to the rest of the world, I was promptly moved to the projects function, because clearly the way I came across looking at how workflows worked and how I could adjust them and correct them to ensure that they got the best throughput. And we measured ourselves in terms of throughputs. We didn't measure ourselves.
The time taken for a delivery, basically.
The time taken for let's say a burger to start as a bun and then get converted to a burger, get wrapped into a foil, and reach a customer's plate.
So this reminds me of that movie of McDonald's and them making that little entire kitchen design on the tennis court.
Yeah, perhaps we picked up a bit from McDonald's. I don't know where they learned their kitchen design from. I learned it from KFC in Singapore, and I loved it. We were sent there for a couple of months of training, and I saw this whole kitchen working as a single flow, and it was phenomenal. For a guy like me, I was in love already.
You know what, let's come back to this entire piece of operational excellence being a moat. I actually wanted to jump into this thought around your guerrilla marketing campaigns you guys did. You know, when you're first coming into a space like this, from the world of Taj, which is a very different world, I'm assuming, and you can concur with that.
I don't know guerrilla marketing, but I had a very smart guy called Raghuvesh Sarup, who was the marketing manager of Pizza Hut at the time.
I think
he was the brand manager.
Yeah.
For Pizza Hut, and he then of course moved on to head Microsoft marketing and CEO many years later, of course. At the time, and we were very good friends on a personal level, so we used to collaborate really well. He used to look up to my operational knowledge, and I used to really really benefit from his way of thinking on how he thought about marketing and how he thought about the consumer and how he looked and analyzed numbers. It was very surprising very often that I as an operator was staring at the same numbers he was looking at, and his take on it was completely different from mine, and I'd be saying, hey, damn, I mean, this guy is way sharper than I am.
I've spoken to Mr. Sarup. He's quite incredible.
He's quite a legend himself.
Yeah.
So, what really then transpired was that because we were having so much fun doing it, whenever competition opened in our trade areas, so that whole piece of how to blunt competition perhaps was born between the two of us, and then it went national for the rest of them.
There's a story you used to tell me about what you did to McDonald's in Pune, right? I think
we didn't really do anything to McDonald's. McDonald's was never competition, but they opened right ahead of us on Jangli Maharaj Road in Pune. So we really decided to have a bit of fun with them. And it wasn't as if we were trying to shut them down or anything, but we were trying to grab some eyeballs to benefit from the traffic that we knew they would drive. We had a very successful Pizza Hut on Jangli Maharaj Road. Fortunately for us, bang opposite McDonald's, there was a bus stand, and that had a nice front fascia, a huge one. We simply put a message there with an arrow saying, Chal Hut. Hut was us down the road, and we put a little arrow down there.
Chal Hut as in Chal Pizza Hut.
Yeah, come to Pizza Hut because it's a good place to go. And we got some credit for that in the newspapers as if we were trying to shut McDonald's down. That was never the idea.
No, that's the kind of stuff.
It was just fun stuff.
This is the kind of fun stuff that people were doing before social media kind of took over and became the classic channel to kind of do all of this stuff. This is OG marketing the way I see it.
Yeah,
right?
this was, at that time we didn't know anything about any social media, right? So it was either leaflets or this. But the fun stuff really was when Domino's entered. Pune.
Wow.
And that was actually quite a story because Domino's came in about a year after we launched at Jangli Maharaj Road, and they also, because of us and seeing our success, launched, and we were already 2-3 stores up by that time. They launched right behind us on Jangli Maharaj Road. What we did with Domino's thereafter was perhaps something that maybe youngsters can learn from today. In a large brand scenario where we had the muscle and we had the product.
As Young Foods in this case.
As a franchisee, but supported by the intellect of likes of, say, Raghuvesh and, us talking. What we managed to do since from 2001 till 2005, till I was involved directly with that business, we did not let Domino's set foot in Pune. They settled, they opened a few restaurants. We did everything under the sun, ethical or non-ethical, including knocking there.
Tell me about that. Tell me what's ethical, what's non-ethical. This is what this podcast is all about. Let's talk about it.
I mean, technically, I shouldn't have, grabbed their managers at 5,000 more salary, right? Or their team members at 2,000 rupees more salary. At the time, we were paying 14,000 and they were paying 10. So I was all right paying 14 and grabbing them. So basically what we used to do was, one, we would blunt them with some serious offers from Pizza Hut. That blunting strategy still continues. It is now a part of the whole SOP of when a competitor is launching close to you. You go out there and you tell your consumers about your product and you give them sharp offers so that they don't move away to the competition. But what we also did was we went after them with this thing around staffing. We never let them stabilize. Basically, a Domino's would open. They would last about 6-7 months. They would go through all sorts of operational challenges. After a year or so, they shut down. So we actually helped them shut down 3 or 4 stores.
If I'm not wrong, attrition is a big challenge in this entire space.
Yeah,
right?
we were already, everyone runs at 100% attrition annually.
All right.
Domino's perhaps because of us ran at
100%. That's a crazy statistic.
Yeah, that's reality.
So for the younger people watching, 100% attrition year on year is what you can expect from a QSR play.
When you're working for a brand. Now, fortunately for us, as brands, we were literally like a training academy. So we could still manage quality because we had extremely strong processes and training apparatus to back it.
Sure.
But for someone starting new, this level of attrition without systems and solid training backing it can be absolutely disastrous.
Got it.
So, that's what we did to them. So Domino's must have run at 200-300% attrition. So they basically folded up in Pune. They never stabilized.
Wow.
They launched Chennai also. Chennai, they were slightly stronger. My erstwhile colleague, who became colleague later, Virag Joshi, was their regional manager in Chennai. He was a sharp guy. I couldn't destabilize him that easily. Pune had no one. So we could knock them about. But those are stories of an age gone by.
Wonderful. So you know what? For the purpose of this podcast, I kind of had 5 sections that I designed that I wanted to talk to you about, and this is really stemming from some of my own experiences. The reason I started this was because I realized that I went through a truckload of shit through my life, and it was 3 years of debilitating pain under bipolar disorder, which is what I was diagnosed with in 2021. And I found myself, and I found stability, and I found my way out of that. And I believe my career is now in a point where I'm hitting escape velocity, and hence the name escape velocity. It was just before you're hitting a golf ball, the ball is about to take off on escape velocity. That's the idea behind this podcast. So the first section that I kind of wanted to touch on as part of this conversation with you today is to talk about personal struggle and early mindset, right? So, you started literally from the floor. cleaning tables, waiting tables, managing a restaurant, literally in hospitality, on the floor. And what early experience do you believe most shaped how you lead as a leader today?
That's an interesting question, and it may have a slightly long-winded answer, so I'll try and cut it as short as possible. As hotel management graduates, we were taught how to clean tables, take orders, etc. When I stepped into the real world at Taj, I joined as a catering assistant, which meant I was taking orders and serving on tables. The world felt very different. 2-3 things happened. One, the servers who were working around you were always way older than you. We were 21 years old, and I just joined. And these boys are all like 28, 30, big, or even older, sometimes 38, 39, with kids, families, etc. Now, to get their respect, you had to be better than them. What I set my mind to doing right in the very beginning when I stepped into this environment, yes, my coat, which I came with, and the degree that I came with gave me that advantage over them. But I didn't think that was enough to really get their respect. They would respect the court, they would respect the position, they wouldn't respect the man. And I set about training myself to be better than them on the floor and doing what they did. And I was. Within 3 months, I was actually working faster than the fastest of them. I could handle a whole section on my own, did not need a server under me. So when I talk about leadership, goals and learning, it came from that very basic aspect of first knowing what you're trying to teach. In later life, as I got larger positions and I had 3, 4, 5,000 people reporting to me or working under me, it was a lot easier for me to then direct teams on how we could actually manage teams better.
Wow.
Because I had very, very hands-on experience on the ground myself. So some of the challenges that I faced, which then created the kind of leader that I am, were just those early learning days. And especially after that, when I entered into the world of running a business, in all honesty, I didn't know what a balance sheet looked like. I had been to school and college, and we had done some balance sheets in an accounting class. But a real business balance sheet and a person I had this lovely mentor called Rajesh Shah. He was running a business. I was reporting to him because he was the managing director of the company, the franchise side. And he was extremely sharp on P&Ls and understanding financial numbers. I really literally learned how to run and manage a business and manage cash and manage inventory from him.
Wow.
So, and again, when faced with a challenge, my typical reaction is to take it head on and to try and rise above it, to be better than the person trying to teach me.
So you would say what the early experiences that shaped you to be the leader you are today is to just chase excellence and be the best from as early as you possibly can once you enter an opportunity.
Yes.
And that kind of trickles down to your team.
And measured by at least compared to those who I'm up against.
Got it. Understood. So another question. Hospitality rewards polish. Entrepreneurship rewards speed. How did you learn to bridge both of those worlds when you kind of started your own thing with Effing Good and so on? If you could help me understand how you did that.
So, polish I got from my early days in Taj, where I was dealing with fine dining and hence meeting perhaps the leadership of the world and sometimes the global world, because you were serving at that time, managing directors or people who ran large businesses or people who ran countries, including the president of some country or the prime minister of some other. Some of their qualities and the way they carried themselves obviously brushed off on the people if they were willing to learn. So I learned from there. Fortunately, that did not go away anywhere through my entire career and thereafter. So I always prided myself to look the best and dress the best, be crisp, clean at all times. I can't say always dress the best, but I dressed crisply enough to be able to, not look scruffy or unkempt. Now transitioning from there to a world where speed is of essence, nothing really needs to change, right? I did relax a bit. The shirts, instead of being tucked in, came out. But the t-shirts still got ironed.
And the collared t-shirts, the famous empty collared t-shirts.
Yeah, the famous collared t-shirts stayed around, just that they didn't get tucked in, they came out.
I remember, when I was a kid, I would see him every morning, 9 o'clock at the dining table for breakfast, in a crisp shirt, perfectly ironed trousers, perfectly ironed shoes. Not ironed, polished shoes, my bad. And suddenly, as he transitioned from that little phase of being super polished in that hospitality world, and he transitioned into entrepreneurship, it became more laid back. But the speed at which he was executing, and I was watching that at Effing Good, the way they've got into retail, the way they've done so much work in the beer industry, and the way they've expanded across the country, it didn't really matter so much what he looked like anymore, because you can be doing it from home. And it's no longer about reporting to a person very senior up right at the top of the food chain. Now it's about reporting to yourself. So I think while hospitality does reward polish, I think entrepreneurship and the speed that came with it's also about the decisions you make, like Mark Zuckerberg would say, right? Do I have to think about what I'm wearing in the morning? I hate doing that. I just want to get up, I want to wear whatever is the lowest level of decision fatigue, get that onto myself and keep going and just push for as many hours in a day as I possibly can. And that transition must have been quite a different one for you, right? Moving into entrepreneurship.
I didn't think of it that much.
No?
It just became a little more relaxed me.
Right, so we've spoken about the early experiences that shaped how you lead today. But a question about, very early in your career again, I'm going back to early days and I'm sticking to that theme for the first section. Did you ever question if you were cut out for leadership? And what triggered that doubt, if you were?
So very often when you don't understand what you're up against, especially like reading balance sheets, I would actually begin doubting whether I was cut out to be a leader. In the early days, also strategy. I didn't understand anything about how to differentiate strategy versus tactic.
Yeah.
And very often I came across more tactical than strategic because I wasn't using all the right data points to build strategy, or I wasn't using all the right cues to build long-term strategy. And I was thinking really about the next, say, 3-4 months.
Got it.
So that can be quite challenging.
And if you were, because I'm sure the same way you experienced this early in your career, there must be younger generation people today who would be experiencing very similar such situations where they're sitting in front of a balance sheet or sitting in a room with some very intelligent people and wondering, hey, am I even cut out for this leadership? What advice would you give them?
Very simply that when you're faced with a challenge, understand to begin with, accept what your shortcoming is. There is enough material available in the global world or on the internet world now. At our time, it was still trying to find the right book to find the right answers, and I did. I used a lot of self-help books, management books, and even accounting books. I actually bought a book to learn accounting and to learn balance sheets.
It's bloody massive.
So, find the answer for yourself. Don't let that challenge defeat you and take you off course. Because if you have the intellect and the fact that you're in a certain position, you must have, then don't doubt yourself, believe in yourself, and whatever skill gaps you're facing, try and bridge them. You will not be able to bridge 100% of your gaps, but you don't have to. What you have to do is to know how to manage the right people and the right situations to deliver what you have to get done.
Wonderful. And if I were to speak to the young Manish from his time at Taj, would he ever believe that he'd scale brands like Pizza Hut and KFC and Taco Bell and bring them to this kind of scale that he did?
Honestly, not, because at the time, the political agenda of the country was not to open up borders, to not let foreign brands in. I was just very fortunate that I was available at a good position and positioned right for when the economy opened and these jobs started rolling in. In fact, many people questioned the fact that I was leaving a company like Taj and joining a company like KFC. I mean, the transition was dramatic.
It was a weird transition, yeah, for sure.
So there was, of course, a very solid career waiting for me even at the Taj.
But I would say moving from literally one end of the spectrum to the other end of the hospitality spectrum, you seem to have blended in so beautifully into it and become a leader at such a young age. You became the CEO at the age of 31, you mentioned.
Yes, it was, well, it is what you enjoy, right? So when you start enjoying what you do at work, then it is no longer work. Hotels, unfortunately, still felt like a chore.
Okay.
While I did turn up there on time or earlier than time, and I did what I had to, and I was doing it well, I still thought it was, hard work.
But was it also the idea that, hey, KFC is reaching out. This is a chain I've experienced at some point in my life globally. And I'm not sure if you had before that, but you'd heard of it at least.
Well, actually, I had. In London, I had gone to train with Taj at some of these really fancy restaurants. And I did go to a KFC once. Can you believe it was just that once? And I had a terrible experience, food experience. I got burnt nuggets and a really bad burger.
Wow.
While the next door, McDonald's and the Burger Kings were flying. I mean, that double Whopper was like my go-to meal.
So it kind of must have felt a little bit like entrepreneurship in itself.
Well, in a sense it did, but really at the time, one of the decisions or one of the reasons for the decision was that KFC came in offering 5 times the salary Taj was.
Wow.
So what they did was they changed the entire landscape and how people viewed restaurant servers and managers.
Wow.
That's what changed them, and that's what made me join them. It was really one thought, a large thought.
Amazing. And so, this helps me understand kind of how your early thinking was, at Taj and then the transition into QSR. Now let's speak to the younger generation about what it really takes to scale QSR. Let's talk about some war stories in your time at the likes of Pizza Hut and KFC and Taco Bell. This is really to help anyone who's looking to begin in QSR. I'm taking this from Nikhil Kamath. It's anyone looking to build in QSR in the near future. You're the right person who knows everything about it, and you're consulting so many brands today in their own endeavors. So why don't you tell a thing or two to the young generation who wants to start a QSR business of their own? So I'll ask you the first question. At Pizza Hut, KFC or Taco Bell, what metric mattered most when you knew a store was going to succeed? Was it throughput? Was it store level EBITDA? Was it customer retention? None of them? Which one was most important?
So the core belief that we always had, this was across KFC and Pizza Hut, was that if you had a very satisfied customer that came from a very happy employee, always. So our focus used to always be on metrics that really told us, are our employees happy? Which means if we could bring that attrition down from 100 to 60 or 70 or even 50 or lower. There were some restaurants that really, some managers that really aced this and brought it down to like 10-15% attrition annually, meaning nobody left them.
Sure. Wow.
Literally. Now, so our focus used to be there, because a happy and well-trained employee is going to give that customer an exceedingly great experience. And when you have happy customers, they're going to come back to you more often. If you have a well-trained employee, all your profitability metrics start improving.
Wow.
Right? So the customer side brings in sale, the people side brings in profit.
Would you say this attrition is more relevant to the managerial level and the supervisor level positions in...
Actually not, it's the team down
It's
below.
the entire team? Including the team in the kitchen? Because I'm assuming that they're very used to training.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Got it. So, and when you were scaling KFC and Pizza Hut to up to about 200, 300 outlets at one point, during that scaling process, what broke first? Was it the supply chain? Was it the quality? Was it the team? Coming back to the attrition point?
So really, none of these. I can't say we were a well-oiled machine, but we were well-oiled enough to not go through any struggles during growth. Primarily because of 2-3 reasons. One, that we were in India a franchise-led business. Hence, each franchisee, though they were growing, had smaller groups of units under them. And if staffed up right, you were able to manage through the growth quite well. We also had tremendous learnings and knowledge from the global system. So when you applied global learning and you applied these across small businesses, 30 stores, 40 stores, 50 stores, growing at 10 stores a year, it was easily manageable.
Sure.
What really, if perhaps anything would have needed more attention, and which we gave, was that we needed to, because as a franchisor, we were very, very focused that we don't let quality go out of our control. Hence, third-party audits, which were conducted by our team at Yum Brands, that got a lot more focus to ensure that everyone was within the guardrails that we had set, at least the product and service.
The scale was so massive at one point that it must have been very challenging to do that, I'm assuming, right?
It was. It did take a lot of very, very highly trained employees. In fact, a lot of the third-party auditors we got from the franchise system. We hired their best managers,
Wow.
paid them really well, and gave them this great job, which was to travel across the length and breadth of the country and do audits.
Wow. That's... So, I think what I'm hearing here, it's really, in a well-oiled machine like Yum, there weren't so many challenges that came with the scaling process. It was more about ensuring that each of your SOPs that went with the franchising of every business that you were franchising happened seamlessly and had guardrails attached to them, and they were ring-fenced perfectly. Is that what you would say is...
That is correct. And if that were to be applied to a local chain attempting to go bigger or to scale, the challenges would change dramatically.
Got it. And coming back to your, kind of one of your skill sets, and this is, again, operations projects, right? In QSR, was there an invisible operational move in the sense that, was it the layout, the kitchen flow, the service process that made scaling even smoother? Or the recipes, you very often talk about recipes and the adherence to recipes. What was that invisible operational flow that really led to scaling being way simpler than it would be for other brands who'd want to scale?
So, two processes were always key. One, the whole training setup, and this level of standardization in the backyard, in the kitchen. If you had an absolutely standardized product, which means every 5 grams of salt or sugar or sauce was absolutely thought through and cut and dried, then you'd never lost control of quality. And if you had extremely solid training processes backing this, then again you ensured that none of these very standardized processes ever got derailed or went totally off track and something else came out as a product. So if your product is right, and consistent day on day and outlet to outlet across the country, doesn't matter whether you're in Cochin or you're in Kolkata or in Delhi, consumers already begin believing in you as a brand.
Very often I wonder because, quick service restauranting, the way you'd seen it with the likes of the KFCs and the Pizza Huts, had very specific recipes, had very specific standardized kitchen designs and so on and so forth. In today's day, where, people are building cloud kitchens and their menu offering is not as standardized as something like KFC was, so that when they want to scale, maybe they want to localize to each individual sort of location that they're focusing on, or they'd like to create specific recipes that are different for a particular type of customer in a particular part of, say, Bangalore within the entire space of Bangalore. How do you really scale in situations where your product is not as standardized? Is the question I'm trying to ask.
You don't. Simple one-word answer.
So standardization.
You will fail, for sure.
Wow.
I can name several examples.
So standardization in quick service restauranting is
100% the key. You cannot scale unless you have a standardized product. You cannot change taste by region, by trade area, by locality. You cannot. It won't work.
Got it. And if I were to ask you again a war story question, right? This is about metrics again. What metric looks great on paper, but actually hides disaster in a QSR business? This is again to caution people when they're looking at their own P&L.
The profit number. So if you're getting very early profits from a business, I would say dive right in and figure out because profits can vanish in a minute. What is really the component to profit? It's really sale minus costs. For restaurant owners or for business owners, it is very easy to cut cost. It is very difficult to bring sales. Now you can, if you have a good running business, you can slash costs by reducing, food ingredient quality or by reducing staff sharply, and you will suddenly see profits spiking. Yeah, it looks very good on paper. But what will happen is that spike will last perhaps a month, maybe 2 months, by which time the consumers will understand that quality and food and services become shit, and they will just melt away.
Wow.
So be very careful if you're seeing a spike in your profitability, because clearly what's happening there is that somebody is managing costs. Unless you're able to correlate that with sales and say, hey, I'm seeing a 50% sales growth, so I should see a 50% sale in profit, in the profits, which is all right.
Got it.
These two numbers should always correlate.
And if I were to ask you if you were a QSR owner today, a young QSR owner today, or even a restaurant owner for that matter, and there was only one daily number that you would track, for every outlet you ever opened, what would that be and why? I know sales is a classic example of it, but would there be...
if there was only one I had the opportunity of tracking, it would be some measure of consumer satisfaction.
So like a net promoter score, like an NPS, consumer NPS?
It could be that, or it could be some form of feedback mechanism which I'm capturing daily, which is then reported to me on a daily basis. You can be absolutely certain consumers don't lie. They will not give you a good review if they've had a bad product, and they will not give you a bad review if they have had a good product. It's very rare that a consumer has had a great product, but he's given you a terrible review because maybe he was just against your restaurant brand. It doesn't happen that way, right? So if you were to keep a very tight look on consumer satisfaction levels through one single metric, is he happy? And how do I define that? Figure out a way to get that feedback to yourself. You should be.
In today's day, as you run something like Effing Good, for example, how do you measure customer feedback? What are you doing specifically to see if a customer loves you or not?
So there are many ways of doing it. One is, of course, direct feedback from the outlets. You put a system around collating that data, either paper feedback forms or through a loyalty program where a customer gets to, write back on an immediate message when he gets a bill. So, something pops up on your phone or on a WhatsApp note, and you say, yeah, good, bad, ugly, whatever the service was. So, typically what I would think today would work really well is that you have a billing system that correlates which correlates the bill to the consumer's number, and along with a soft copy of the bill that you shoot to him, you ask for a short feedback. How was your experience today? Great, average, good, bad.
I remember there was a time at Effing Good, and I had worked with you guys at Effing Good for a bit. I was helping with a fundraise, and I was also trying to understand your customer better. I remember telling Mr. Manugulati, your partner, that I don't think he knew his customer. And I was very clear, and I told him that. And I wanted to prove him wrong, because the way I did it was, I remember literally calling upwards of 150 customers who talked to me across a weighted average set of metrics that I defined their happiness basis of. And some incredible insights came out of it, including attrition being one of the major challenges leading to beer inconsistency and so on and so forth at one point. The brand has obviously stabilized a lot since. So customer satisfaction and what led to customer satisfaction, the ambience, the music, the food, the drinks, each of those elements kind of were things that we were capturing in that study, I remember. And my problem with that today is that customers hate inconvenience, which is, do I have to fill in a feedback form? I don't want to do that. Do I have to give you my email? I don't want to do that. Do I have to give you my number? I don't want to do that. I know there are apps like Air Menus now that are allowing people to put their numbers in. There's no other way to get through to a menu without putting a number in. But they refuse very often to even give feedback, even if it's very good, because it's just taking time away from their...
Point is, you will get some feedback. It doesn't matter if 100% of your customers do not give feedback, if only 20% do.
Okay.
But it is relevant to get 20% consumers' feedback, and there are 20% who will give it to you. So just follow that, and let's not worry about the other 80% who are just not willing to give it to you.
So if I were to ask
Or we'll worry about them on a different platform.
Got it. So if I were to ask you if you would scale another brand today, right? What is one operational principle you would never compromise on?
Difficult answer, because operations is really a...
But one principle, one core thing that you would never compromise on.
Well, it has to do with people and training.
So I'm hearing a lot of, from this conversation, the first two sections so far, I'm hearing a lot of customer obsession and people and attrition. Do you think these are the two core things that make a restaurant business work?
People is what make a restaurant business work.
Internal people as well as your
Only internal people, not customers. Customers follow after people. So if you have a bunch of really happy employees who are well trained, who know what they have to do, your success as a restaurant is guaranteed.
If I were to today, what would labor cost be as a percentage of your P&L?
Depends on what kind of a restaurant you're running.
Suppose you're running an Effing Good today or a KFC today. What kind of
KFC would hover in the region of 8 to 9%. An Effing Good would hover in the region of 18 to 20%.
So you would say you would increase the quality of the laborer, or it's
just the number of people required to manage revenues in an Effing Good are way larger than the number of people required to do it in a KFC.
All right, so some of the core things I've picked up from the metrics piece that we've spoken about so far is that metrics will work themselves if your people on the ground are happy and they're working well and they're well trained and they understand the operation very well. Everything else revolves around that, because that leads to customer satisfaction, and customer obsession is something that is very important in the whole metrics game that we're looking at. So coming to sort of the next phase of this podcast, which is more around what the industry looks like, 2025 as a mindset for QSR and the hospitality industry. I would say the hospitality industry today is under massive change, with the likes of Zomato, the likes of the Zepto cafes coming into the world, rising costs, shifting tastes, extremely specific taste profiles changing by pin code almost specifically. And what is the real future, in your opinion, of F&B brands post-2025?
So when we talk about India specifically, yes, there are massive changes happening. These changes relate to the way the urban structure of population is changing. More and more people are urbanizing. Farms and villages are fading away, leading to a significant growth in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and also Tier 1 cities are getting more and more crowded. Clearly, what is going to work well, and many have already started hitting that bandwagon, is to get food, make it easily accessible. When I say accessible, it means both in terms of ease of reaching out, meaning either a phone call or an app through which you place an order, and also just knowing that there is this food available at a certain time. So accessibility is going to be the key. The rest of it, in terms of food quality, in terms of customer obsession, need to remain. But make it more accessible, which basically means your size is going to shrink. You will have a tighter, smaller place, but you're going to have it in many, many more locations because, yes, you're right, tastes may change by pin code. If you want to build a sustainable brand, though, you can't change your taste. Forget by pin code, you can't change it. So what you have to do is to establish in your mind a product that is universally acceptable or will taste good to the right kind of profile that you're talking to of consumers, and go after that with complete belief in the product. Of course, the success of first few outlets will support that. If you don't succeed even in the first few outlets, do not expand it. But yes, if we're talking about what will actually scale in 25 and onwards, I would say a smaller footprint, more accessibility. I'm not a big fan of cloud kitchens, so I would still say offline, visible outlets, but smaller, quicker, easy to access, getting food to the customer a lot quicker.
Wow, that's some great insight, and I think I wanted to kind of lead that question too. Do you believe that the best hospitality brands today are going to be built online first or offline first? And I'll give you an example of why I ask you this question. I recently became friends with the founder of a company called Fez Cafe. It's For Earth's Sake, was initially called For Earth's Sake. They rebranded to Fez Cafe, founded by a gentleman called Vidur Mayor. And the experience that he had created around that offline setup of his, where he was doing stuff like rave parties for the Gen Z audience that didn't want to drink, and creating an entirely different niche of a customer for himself, and then focusing on desserts and building an experience-first setup. Where do you really think the best brands will be built today? Do you think it'll be online, or do you think it'll be an experience-first?
Simple answer, brands only get built offline. Online brands, restaurants are not an FMCG or an electronic product. You don't experience the true nature of the product as in FMCG and electronics. The true experience of the product is in using it. In a restaurant or in the food business, the true experience of the product is in eating it, is in consuming it. And it is in the environment that you're sitting in. So if I'm going to consume that, if that is going to be the core, and that can't change because it is food, it is beverage, then it always remains that offline businesses are where brands will get built. Yes, you can expand it through, for accessibility's sake, while you're putting some really visible stores on the ground, add a few cloud kitchens here and there, just for ease of accessibility at a cheaper cost.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But there is no question of building a really successful brand online only. It's very, very
We have
difficult.
some great examples. Da Suzy Pizza is a brand, for example, that's gone experience first. There are some beautiful restaurants.
Some brands that have not done so well are the likes of Behrose Biryani. You don't hear of them anymore.
I got food poisoning once from a Behrose biryani. I remember very well. It was quite a painful experience.
Can be.
But building on that, and this is something that's going to take on your old school beliefs. This is going to kind of question what if someone's building today in F&B or QSR, what old school beliefs would you tell them to kill immediately from back in the time? Or would you say played by the playbook that the big boys have done their entire lives?
No, you have to take cognizance of where the world has moved to today. So if I'm saying that consumer satisfaction will remain at the center of everything you do, but the kind of footprint that you build, the way the product gets structured, the way it gets serviced, if you were to do it as we did this, say, 25 years ago, it will not fly. Consumer tastes have changed, they've evolved, they've got better traveled, so they have experienced a lot more. You can't just slap any old product in front of them anymore. So the product itself has to be more elevated. The service style and quality has to be more elevated for you to be able to, or for us to be able to dive or to get into that market.
Got it. And you've ran both luxury with Taj and fast food with Yum. Which segment is harder to survive in, luxury or QSR, and why?
Luxury is extremely important to survive in because it's a hit and a miss. You open a luxury restaurant, it typically has a shelf life of a few years, and then it requires to change because people get used to that environment and that atmosphere. You can't really scale a luxury brand.
Got it.
Again, pockets of where people can afford that sort of food, that price, are not many. QSRs, on the flip side, they have the challenges for sure, but if you've got the model right, QSRs are the brand that can actually expand and scale because they appeal to a lot wider segments and they are a lot more price friendly by definition.
Got it. Super interesting. That's a great outlook on how this industry is played out and what's really been happening in this particular time of day in the QSR and the food business. Let's talk a little bit about global affairs. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening around the world right now in QSR and hospitality. So I'd want to ask, with QSR giants shrinking formats for drive-through and delivery, would you bet on smaller footprints as the future?
I did. I think I just said that smaller footprints would be the way to go.
Yeah.
If you're in slightly smaller markets like Tier 2, Tier 3, where experience still remains the key, you may want to build a slightly larger footprint to give that customer who's really not visiting you as often or has not so many other options to distract him. Then building a slightly larger footprint would be better. But in Tier 1 cities, there is very little reason to grow in a larger footprint.
So small footprint, something you'd bet on. Great. And food inflation, let's talk about that. It's crushing margins globally. How do you raise prices without killing customer loyalty in QSR, especially in a value-conscious economy like India?
So, in my experience, consumers do not get fazed by inflationary price corrections. They don't melt away with that.
Okay.
People understand that there is inflation. They do get also salary increments, which are equal or higher than say food inflation. And hence, if we were to take inflationary corrections, while keeping the base still very tight and very affordable. I have not felt any headwinds from consumers due to that.
Got it. And another really pertinent question to the environment we live in today, and I use the word environment because this question is related to sustainability. Sustainability is becoming a big push in F&B. Do you see green hospitality as a real business moat, or do you see it as just a marketing noise?
Well, there are many who've attempted to go down the path of veganism and talk about green hospitality. But really, maybe at some point in the future, and I can't predict how long it will take, where green may become the moat. I think at this stage, it is more a PR stunt. What really works is still taste and quality that you serve. And that's very little dependence on sustainability there.
Amazing. Got it. So we're going to move on to the next phase, which is what this podcast is all about, right? The escape velocity phase, I like to call this. So when you were scaling brands, and I go back to your time at Pizza Hut and KFC again, because I think that was probably the core of your career, most of what you'd done. When did you realize that KFC was no longer just surviving in the country and it was now beginning to hit escape velocity? When did that realization hit? How many outlets was it? Is there a number you can define to that in some way?
So there is an inflection point that comes in every brand, and that really comes at the point where your overhead expenses are more than met and covered by the profits the individual outlets are giving you as a combination or as a whole. Typically, that inflection point is where QSRs begin rapid expansion, because every unit that you add thereafter does not add so much to your overhead costs. There's a very little impact on overheads while revenues and profits continue to climb. This happened for KFC in the year 2009. Niren Chaudhary was the managing director of Yum at the time, and he was a great leader. He wanted KFC to grow, so we had at that time some 7 or 8 KFC outlets nationally, and then we made a very ambitious plan to grow up to 100 in 2 years. We did manage, and that was where the exciting part was. So when we went from 9 to 20 and then from 20 to 40, I was fortunate that I was part of that journey and thereafter.
And that's where you saw it kind of take off.
Yes.
On that escape velocity that we very often see. Got it. And if I were to ask you if there was a brutal truth about scaling physical locations that would crush 90% of first-time founders in this business, because you're an expert at scaling physical locations. That was primarily what you did. What is the brutal truth about that could really scare a current founder off?
Real estate costs.
As simple as that? What about project management? What about the whole idea of designing kitchens that you talked about, the precision that is required
So,
there?
if you're actually scaling, you would get your act together around those. Those are manageable metrics or manageable, controllable features in the outlet. There would be many others which are very, very difficult to manage, such as people, availability, training, and consistency, product, so on and so forth. But really, the biggest truth in expanding a brand nationally today or anywhere today is the bloody real estate cost. So most of your profits go away in that unless you've really got that aspect correct.
As you talk about the last two questions I've asked you, and as you've spoken about them, I think something that could help the younger gen understand this business better would be building on your experience of managing P&Ls for so many years. What does a good P&L look like in the world of restauranting? I know this is a little segue from the whole escape velocity piece, but what is a good set of metrics on a P&L for a restaurant? What does that number look like, or what do those numbers look like?
So there are some yardstick numbers or some numbers that you can play upon. A good restaurant should run a food cost of ideally no more than 28%. should run a labor cost of 12%, should run a rental cost of 15%, and all other overheads combined 15%. So you would then end up with about 30% profit, which is what will actually make you happy and get your capital back in about 2 to 3 years' time.
Are those metrics consistent between luxury and QSR?
No, they change dramatically. So different formats play out at different metrics. A QSR typically ends up at a much higher food cost because you're always subsidizing the selling prices. But you benefit from, because of that subsidized price, your revenue goes up. So your rentals drop, instead of 15, they come down to 8 to 9%. Labor costs drop to sub 10%, and overheads drop to sub 10%.
Got it.
So they correct themselves.
Got it.
But they all fall in the same range. Now, even a QSR needs to make 25 to 30% profit at unit level. Otherwise, the business is not exciting enough. There's too much effort and too little reward.
Got it. So we're coming towards the close before I do a little rapid fire with you, which is going to be a Kejo inspired rapid fire. So Kejo, I hope you're hearing this. What mind shift helped you move from managing one restaurant to hundreds without losing control?
It wasn't a mind shift, it was a journey. And I was very fortunate. I was part of a global team where there was huge focus on training people on managing larger and larger number of units. So I had a lot of help along the way. If I was left to sink or swim, I would have probably sunk. But here there was an opportunity where you were told there's an ocean in front of you, and then you were given the skills to swim the ocean and then thrown into it.
I've often heard you say this though, that, you know, अभी तो एक ही है restaurant, अब 2 हो जाए 3 हो जाए तो देखना पड़ेगी basically. You've said this before, and you say this to even founders that you're consulting. You tell them that the second the next.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if they have availability of training at that level of knowledge, which tells them what to focus on when they have more than one outlet, and what to let go of in terms of controls. Because a typical founder's biggest issues are that, since they've started their first unit and they're very passionate about their product, which is all very good, they tend to not be able to let go of multiple control points, taking on a huge load on themselves and very often burning out.
Yeah.
Because of that constant pressure, because they become single-man armies trying to manage 5, 6, 8 outlets. The idea is to know what to control and what to let the teams, or what to empower teams to control, and give the teams then that support and the knowledge so that they can manage that segment well and better than if you were attempting to manage it for 9 restaurants or 5 or 4.
So MP, I'm beginning to bring this podcast to a bit of a close. And before that, I wanted to do this rapid fire round with you. And I'm going to ask you 5 questions. The way I want you to look at these 5 questions is I'm going to give you a this or a that, and you have to choose one, and give me a one-line reason as to why, and we're going to sprint through this one. Let's do it in 60 seconds, all right? All right, we start in 3, 2, 1. MT, faster service or better ambience?
Better ambience. Because faster service will not get consumers back to you. If the ambience is dirty and shitty, not coming.
More SKUs on the menu or fewer but perfected?
Fewer but perfected. Very easy. More SKUs means more chaos, bad quality.
This is an interesting one for the people watching in different Tier 2, Tier 3 towns. Tier 1 city focus or aggressive Tier 2, Tier 3 expansion?
Preferably today in India, Tier 2, Tier 3 city focus, lower rentals, there's a huge market waiting to be explored and served, underserved market.
Franchise first or company owned and scaling?
Company owned and scaling always, unless you have very strong franchise controls in place.
Ghost kitchens or flagship dining?
I hate ghost kitchens or flagship dining.
So that's a little jab at Zepto Cafe. All right, that's a good one. Cool. So another wild card question I'm going to ask you. One belief about your industry that 90% of people would disagree with. What would that be?
That restaurants are extremely profitable.
And you think that it's a very difficult business to build profitability in?
Extremely difficult. Most people don't understand it. It is 80%. There is a 80% burnout or 90% burnout rate to restaurants that launch. So this is not a business that is easy to either understand or to run.
So I have a sense on the next question I'm about to ask, and we're closing in just about now. And I have a sense of what you're going to say right now because this entire conversation has been quite enlightening. If you could tattoo one belief onto every future founder building in food, retail, or service,
Customer
what would it
first.
say? Customer first?
Always. You will then get everything else right around it. People, food, quality will all follow because you've got the customer first.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, MT, I hope this conversation was fun. This, for me, was a big learning. While I've been in the fraternity, because I've been in your house most of my life, I've known a lot about a lot of these things you've just mentioned. But delving deeper into it and bringing this to the wider public, I think, was a goal of mine. And I think interviewing you was an absolute pleasure. And
Thank you very much, Prathi.
Very fortunate to call you my father as well. So, guys, this was the Escape Velocity pod. Keep building, keep pushing, and hope we see more people like MT in the near future. MT, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Prathi.
Cheers.